There's a fly.
Hello and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
Yes, and we have a return guest. We have Courtney, Yasmineh. Welcome.
Hi. Wonderful women.
Yes, because I was doing my homework, I knew that we had you on in 2020. I knew that you made that cut. You're one of the last folks that people that we talked to before the shutdown. We talked to you in February 22nd.
Wow.
I know.
What the heck did we talk about?
It was so funny. Yeah, nothing that we talk about now. I mean, it was such a different world. What was awesome is we had such a great opportunity to get to know about your background and get to know you. And I know talking about your new album, we're going to get an opportunity to talk more about you, which I think is kind of exciting. But it was so funny to like, wow, there's no discussion of pandemic. There's no discussion of civil unrest. It was so ladies, we've been through a lot.
Oh my gosh, right? So that was a year and a half ago then, right? That's like a year and a half.
Yep, a year and a half ago. And a year.
I feel like I haven't seen you guys in 3 years, I mean,
I know.
It just
feels like a long time.
Everything has changed so much.
It has changed so much. But you have made good use of the last year and a half. You have this album coming out, and you've been playing online, you've been playing outdoors. You tell us about all the things you've accomplished in life. I mean, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, that's a really fun story, because I was kind of thinking, gosh, I know I have a new album, but I wonder what we're going to talk about. I was kind of like, I don't really have an agenda about how to talk about this yet. I think once an album's out, you have a lot of things that you realize you're supposed to say about it. But because really no one's heard it yet, I've been kind of like, well, I wonder what I'm going to talk about. But okay, so of course there's a fly.
Well, then I'm going to warn you that we have been lucky to have a sneak peek of it. I have a lot of questions about the album, but let's start here.
Okay, I just want to say that in March of 2020, so that would have literally been a month after I saw you guys, less than that, maybe 3 weeks later, I got the dreaded virus.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
In March. And we had a friend who was a musician who had been working in LA, and then he went and did a project at the New School in New York. Mm-hmm. Over like the January, February thing. And then he came to stay and work with Rob Genetic, the producer I work with. And we were all together, like shoulder to shoulder in the recording studio for a week or so. They were working on a project, and I was just coming and going, working on my stuff. And we all got it. And so he didn't know. He wasn't sick at the time. And so anyway, kicking off the whole experience with getting it right away. And nobody in the Twin Cities had it. And I went to a hospital here in the Twin Cities. One of the nights, my family brought me in because I have asthma, and I was getting scared. Like, I really couldn't breathe. And the hospital said, we don't have any cures. We don't have any tests. And we think you probably have it. And they literally said, assume you have it. No one was even wearing masks yet. I mean, nobody had their act together about it at all. And they actually, as I was leaving the hospital, they said, and please don't touch anything on your way out, and please don't stop and use our bathroom.
Oh.
Get out of here. Go home, and hopefully you'll get better, and hopefully you won't come back. And so anyway, that was the launching point for me. And there's a song on the album called Hope 2020. And when I wrote it, I was sick in the bed sheets with COVID, dreaded bed sheets, lying there thinking, oh my God, I really might die. And I wrote this little song called Hope, and I called it Hope 2020. And I got the idea that if I lived, that I would put a slash and be like 20/20, like 2020, hindsight is 2020, that kind of a thing. And so it's on the record now. It's called Hope 2020.
One of my favorite lines from that song is, no reason to think that hope will leave you when you need it the most. And I wondered how that fit into the last year. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's how I got started, and that's how I ended up writing the record. And that's, I mean, that's really, I've never, this is the very first time I've ever told that story, or even actually put it all together like, oh, okay, this is how I can sort of frame up how I wrote the record. But that's the kickoff right there, is that was the first song. And then so then my fans started asking if I, because I have fans in Europe and in other parts of America, and as everybody got scared, and I had recovered. It took me 3 weeks, and I recovered, and everybody wanted to hear how I was doing. Could I still sing? Was everything okay? And I think that I just sort of became a beacon of hope for people who knew me in small pockets around wherever. And so I started doing some online shows. And then as the summer came, my fans who already knew me well realized that I was probably the only person that you could invite to do an outdoor thing and feel pretty like a little safe, tiny bit, like there was no vaccine yet or anything, but I had it. So if we all were just outside, and if I was just way over with my guitar and on my own microphone, my own little setup, and all they had to do was throw me an extension cord. That's what we would say. Just, all you're going to have to do is throw an extension cord towards me from your house, and I'm just going to play. And I ended up having concerts all last summer, and it was really meaningful. There was a lot of crying, and there was a lot of there. And then of course everything else happened in Minneapolis. So I wasn't going on tour. I was just driving around the region in my own car doing these things. So it was all Minnesota-based things, and everybody obviously had all these additional concerns in about all the inequality issues that suddenly reared up. And it became a great time for me to utilize my background knowing songs from the 1960s and 70s, and my love of the Times They Are Changing Bob Dylan song. And I don't know, man, it came together for me. It just came together.
You are one of the most resilient people that I've ever met. I mean, your story is of resiliency, everything else, but I mean, just to bring it back to hope, just what inside you, having COVID at a time when it was super scary to have COVID.
Yeah, and I had just turned 60, and I had asthma.
And asthma. And what?
Over 60 and asthma, like you're gonna die for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So what gave you the resilience to work on a song?
I was really scared. I was truly scared, and I've been truly scared, as you know, as you guys can guess from other stories I've told you. I've been really scared several times in my life.
Yeah.
And I have feared for my life at other times, and I've always turned, since I was probably 8 years old, to strumming my guitar on my bed. That's how I've survived my life. And that's what I did right away. I got my little guitar, and I got my little notebook and my pen, and I just started writing stuff and strumming the guitar. And it always worked before, and it worked again.
I was gonna say, when I listened to the new album, I feel what I took away from it is like a love letter to your relationships, yourself, your dreams. Is that sort of woven in there, or is that what I want to pull out from it?
Well, I wouldn't have been able to say that yet, but it's such a gift that you both took the time to listen. Thank you so much, because no one's heard it yet, and I haven't had any feedback. Very, very, very little. And so for you to say that is a gift to me. And I would say, yeah, I see it that way because you said it. But I knew that this album is me letting down my guard for the first time in my life, emotionally. And I think my guard, the thing that looks like having up like a shield and a sword for Courtney has always been being like a little bit angry, a lot angry, and a little bit like sarcastic, like screw you. I really don't care what you think of me, that kind of thing, you know. And that it's super fun to sing songs that are like that, you know. It's kind of punk rock, right? To just be like, I don't care what you think of this, you know. But I think that this album for me was a turning point about saying, okay, I really care a lot. I care a lot about the things that have happened. I actually care a lot about myself. I really care about my fans. I really started realizing like, God, I might never get to go out on tour ever again. And I got really sentimental about a lot of, and about kindness, about how so many people have been so kind to me and helped me so much. And those things weren't things that I wanted to express in songs before.
I was going to say, yeah, you touched on that. One of the last times we spoke to you, you wanted to have more intention and better energy and not that feistiness, which we love and appreciate and like that, but it just seemed to go a little deeper, I guess, with the pandemic and stuff for you. Yeah.
Well, and I started, I guess, partly that thing about how I got sick and now suddenly I was a person who people could trust in a little bit different way because it was like, oh, she had it and she survived. I don't know. There was something about that. And then about me being an older woman, I know I've been saying for maybe like the past like 3 years or so that I started to have this feeling like it was starting to work for me in my music reputation. Whereas I think when I was in my like 40s or early 50s, it was working against me. It was like, oh God, she's so old. That's, you know, it's so weird. Why is she doing this? But I think coming through a lot of experiences and getting to a certain age starts, I don't know if it's for every woman, but it can, I think, start to really work for a woman to become a person who can be reassuring to other people and strong for other people. And I think particularly this past year, and also how I actually feel like it's like a lucky miracle that I got to be in Minneapolis when all of it went down, because I have a lot of pride about, you know, I'm from Chicago, but I went to McAllister College, where you guys have broadcast from, and I have a lot of pride about the Twin Cities. And I think that the whole time that the things that were happening around the George Floyd murder, I think the way Minneapolis handled it, the way it happened, the way it went down, I really think maybe couldn't have happened anywhere else that way. And that it is partly because Minneapolis is actually a city where people do have really strong feelings about these things. If the same thing had happened right now in, I don't want to say a city and like sort of disrespect some other city, but I think there are cities where that could have happened and it would have been the same old outcome and and the world wouldn't have known and it wouldn't have become what it became. So I feel like I was very lucky to be in Minneapolis, and I think that became part of it too. Is I got to speak out to my fans from this place that the whole world was watching, and I got to be a person who was saying, I'm proud of what's happening here. I really think that it's a pressure cooker, but boy, we've got all the right elements for things to really shift in a positive way. And it was very transformative for me to have those lucky things of being a person who got the virus and being a person who was in Minneapolis and being a person who has a platform as a songwriter. Amazing. I couldn't believe it myself.
Well, and I'm thinking, because you play, as you said, you're playing around the region, and you play in a lot of rural communities. I know you've got a big following in Ely,
Yeah.
and I work in a lot of those places as well. So I think it's so important for folks to have a voice, folks in Ely and other different parts of rural Minnesota, to have a voice they recognize, talk about the firsthand account of being in the cities during that time. Because it was an odd time to be here for anybody who was in the Twin Cities. It was all encompassing, except then I'd have a 3 o'clock meeting with somebody from up north or down south in Minnesota, and it was just not part of it. So I thank you for playing that role of kind of the bard to tell the stories of what's happening in the.
Yeah, and it really was like that. I'm over here by Minnehaha Falls. That's where I'm living with Rob Genetic, the producer, and I got on my bicycle the morning where they burned down my favorite gas station, and they burned down the Walgreens where I have my prescriptions for my asthma medicine. And I was riding my bicycle around going, oh my God. I would turn a corner and I'd go, oh no, the Walgreens is gone. Oh my God. I mean, it was really intense.
It was. I was there probably about 2-3 hours before the third precinct came down, and I was there the night before, and I was there. But I'm kind of a date. Once it gets, I'm like, time for the mamas to go home now. It's kind of there's a time and a place for, but it was, yeah. So you live over there, and that explains why your video is down in Minnehaha.
Yeah. Okay. I want to say something about that. Might as well just say it right now, because who knows if we'll get back to it. But that song okay. So the single came out, and the single has a song. The single is a song called "Trying Times for Love," and that's just like, thumbs up to everybody. We made it through the pandemic. If you haven't broken up yet, you might as well try staying together a little longer. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of, to me, that's the message of that song. But I want to say this, that there's another song on the album that's called The Creek, that has the real reference to the Minnehaha Creek. So my daughter, Nina, who has a new song out today herself, Nina Luna. She's putting out 3 singles this summer that she worked on in LA, but she's here in Minneapolis right now. Anyway, Nina filmed the music video for Trying Times for Love, but we did it at the Minnehaha Creek, because that creek and that scenario, the place, that sense of place that's the album. The album sort of, it's sort of about the North Woods, about the experiences of going up to Ely again and being back up in the North Woods. And it's sort of about what happened to me was that I got a puppy during, right when I got sick. We also got this puppy. And I can't remember if we got him before or after I was sick. I think we already had him when I was sick. Anyway, when I was getting better, it does take a while to, if you recover from that, it takes a while to get your stamina back. And so I started walking the puppy farther and farther. And I didn't realize that this house where I'm living now is right where the Minnehaha Creek goes into the Mississippi River. But I used to live, when I was raising my 3 children, I used to live at the headwaters of the Minnehaha Creek, where there's a Lake Minnetonka. For people who aren't familiar, there's Lake Minnetonka, and then it begins its eastern little trail, which is the Minnehaha Creek, and it goes all through the city, and it empties into the Mississippi River. And I've been saying lately, never to be seen or heard from again. The little creek comes off of Lake Minnetonka and zips and dashes and goes all through, and then gone. And I don't know, but I got completely freaked out the day that I was down. I walked all the way to the end of it, and I was like, where are we? Where are we? And I was like, oh my God, this is the Mississippi River right here. And I just stood there in awed surrender to the Holy Spirit. And I was like, okay, I don't care what anybody else thinks, but I think it's the weirdest thing in the whole world that I live right here where the creek dies, right? And I used to live where the creek starts up. So I wrote this song called The Creek, and I'm gonna keep talking about this for a minute. I'm gonna say that I play the song for my son. So we'll bring in the character now of my youngest child, my son Jordan, and there's a middle girl, Ava, too. But my son Jordan is also a bit of a songwriter, but he's 25 and he thinks he knows everything. Sorry, Jordan, if you're watching. And he likes to talk to his mom like we're equals, and he knows what's going on. So I play him this song, and he's so great at his attitude towards his mother. He like listens to the song, and at the end, in classic like skateboard kid style, he goes, "Mom, are you kidding me?" And I'm like, what do you mean, Mom? Are you kidding me? He's like, that's it. That's the end. It just ends like that. And I'm like, what's the matter with it? He's like, Mom, I mean, it starts out really promising. And then all it does is it just keeps saying, I am that water. I am that water. I mean, Mom, what are you thinking? He's like that. So I got really mad. And I said, like, I don't like you anymore. And I'm never playing another song for you. And then for like a week, I would walk the puppy down to the creek, and I would think, God darn it, maybe my annoying son is right. Maybe that song isn't right, but I like it so much. And I kept thinking, should I just ditch that song? Maybe that song's no good. And one day when I was down at the creek, I was so mad. I really was. I was like mad at him. And he had said that the opening lines were really promising. And the opening line of that song is, I've been a coward, I've been a liar. Here I go again, beating myself up. Always praying for liftoff, but I'm no high flyer. And then it says, at best, I'm like the creek that rolls right past me through the, right. Okay, and then it talks about the creek. And he was like, okay, but what about the big confession at the beginning, this personal thing? And we think that like you're gonna tell what you were lying about, what you're being a coward, and then all you end up talking about is the creek the rest of the time, like so dumb. So I decided he was right, and I wrote a whole second half, and I realized that he was right. And that's in the second half, my son really did me a big favor, because I really thought, well, all right, what did I start out trying to say? What was I thinking about being a coward and a liar? And I thought, I'm gonna have to say some ugly things that I don't really want to say. And I said them, and I said them to the point that I was satisfied that I had told the real story. And I played the song again for my son, and he was like, thank God, you nailed it, Mom. You finally got it right. And that is one of my favorite songs on the record. It really is. So I mean, I guess when a person who's listening to us, if you're curious about the song The Creek, you'll get to hear the part of it that's personal.
I was gonna say, listening to the album too, it reminds me or brings me back to a more simpler lyric, and it's not all these crash boom bangs, and it just brings you back to like open thoughts, open roads, just openness. And it builds on the relationships too, rather than, the parents going this way, dropping the kids off here and there, and like we get to hear and nourish the relationships instead of Google this and you get all the answers. You get to talk to whatever character or person and get that information rather than just your phone or whatever. I don't know. It brought me back to the importance of asking questions of your parents, your grandparents, or whatever. I have no idea why you brought me there, but that's where I landed. And I just thought, gosh, it's such a cool thing to like ask somebody the history rather than ask your phone or whatever. So I love the fact that your son helped creep in and pull that out of you also.
I think that idea of history is really interesting. I think that's another gift from you guys is to think about. I remember that I wrote 30 songs, and then I started honing it in, and I got to these 14, and I told Rob, you know, you can pick 10. I really don't want it to only have 9 songs, but if it only has 10, I'll be fine with that. And I'm certainly prepared for somebody to say 4 of them are no good, you know, or 3 of them are no good, whatever. But we started realizing that that all 14 were necessary for me to feel like I had completed the story. And I wasn't really sure what story I was telling, but I think using the word history is really great. That I did start to think that I wanted people who have listened to my albums, or people who had never, and maybe this was the first time they were listening to me, I have like a yearning for them to understand where I came from musically, and where I came from as a person, and why I would be doing. Okay, I want to throw in this little story. This is a good time to throw in this little story. When the last tour we were on in Europe was in October of 2019, so the October before I last saw you guys, and after a really beautiful show in Germany, a man and his wife came forward, and the wife said he doesn't speak English very well, and he was an older man than me, older than I am. She said he doesn't speak English very well, but he really wants to speak with you because he was very touched by your music. And the man like took my hands in his hands, and I'm a person who has no father, and my brother died, and so there aren't a lot of caring men in my life. And so for an older man to come up to me like this was very touching to me. And he took my hands, and he was saying, you remind me of America at its best. You make me think of freedom, the freedom that America really is. And he asked me how old I was, and I told him the truth. I was 59 at the time. And he said, why are you doing this to yourself? And I was like, you know, I don't know what you're getting at here, buddy. But I saw that what he meant was that a woman of my age wouldn't be out trying to play her original songs for people and going all around the world, where clearly I hadn't made it big, and there wasn't a lot of money coming. I was doing it on a shoestring, and clearly it was very hard work. He actually, at one point, he said, "You must be so exhausted." Mm. And I think that I've been trying to answer that question now for people, because I can see that they would look up at the stage and be like, what is with her? What is this about? You know, what exactly is this about? I don't really understand this story. And I think that I wanted this album to help explain it. And if it does at all, if it somehow gives a context to why I am hell bent on doing what I'm doing. You know, I am not backing down, people. So I might as well try to explain it somehow. And maybe that idea of like the history of like where I came from, what I care about, and how important the songs are to me, how important they are to me. I just can't help it, you know.
I'm gonna do a scary thing by trying to guess what some of the songs are about. You know, like I usually like people to tell me the story, but you know me, I had some degrees in literature, so I recognize when there's a motif that comes up in a couple of different songs, like maybe the boots of Spanish leather. So the bury me in boots of Spanish leather, you clearly are bringing up. I mean, you talk about Bob Dylan, and you talk about John Prine and Dolly Parton and all these sort of things, and then and that kind of opens the album. And then one of the last songs is and I've got it here. We go. Whitney Rose, Don't Give Up. Oh. And you talk about the opening the store of Spanish leather or something. Somehow it was a tie-in again. And I wondered how those songs connected together, because it seemed like one was all I can think of was the little pig who did, the little pig who didn't. That's I don't want to say it that way, but one is the road not taken, one is the road taken.
I want to just show you a really funny thing. I'm sitting in, so this is the guest room in Rob's house. It's just a little 2-bedroom house, but he kindly is letting me stay here temporarily for 4 years now, right? working, we're always working on a record, and I'm gonna leave at any time when I finally, but Rob's been so kind. But okay, so here's this little basket. So this guest room is my like dressing room, and I keep all my stuff in. Here's this cute basket, and inside of it is the boots of leather. These are
they are gorgeous.
They are boots, and I keep them in here because they're so fancy and they're so like important to me. And I wear them when we play shows, but I don't wear them any other time. You'll only see those when I'm playing a show. But it's kind of funny that they're sitting right here.
That's just funny.
Under my desk. And they're such a big deal to me. And I realized like, okay, so the boots of Spanish leather just represents the performance thing, because they're so, if I don't write songs and I don't go on tour and I don't keep performing, I really don't get to ever wear those boots again. I mean, they represent the dream 100% to me. That's who I get to be if I keep putting out the good material, if I keep doing a good job.
You're either gonna be buried in the after they're well worn and used. You're gonna be buried in the Spanish boots, or you're gonna open a shop like Whitney Rose.
Well, that's giving up. Giving up.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Giving up would be that you'd take all your nifty fringe jackets and your nifty boots and everything and your guitars, and you'd open up some kind of shop in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
It's like a vintage, shop for cowgirls and for songwriter girls. And Whitney Rose is a real person, and she's doing great. I'm really excited for her. I don't know her at all. During the pandemic, I started following her on Instagram, and I love her story. She's from Prince Edward Island, which I mentioned in the song. And she's down in Austin, Texas, working on her career. And there were a couple things that happened. I went on tour once, and there was a poster of her at every venue that I was playing. So she was doing pretty much the same route that I was doing through Europe. And that's how I first heard of her. And then during the pandemic, I was following her on Instagram, and I saw that she was really, she cried one night on stage because the bar that she loved in Austin was shut down, and then they were going to bulldoze it. And somehow, and she's like half my age, and she hasn't made it yet. And sometimes she would put up these posts during the pandemic being like, I don't know if we're ever going to go out. And she had just put out a new record, and she didn't get to promote it properly. I was watching all that, and I just kind of channeled that into my own grief, and my own frustrations. And she always wears really cool boots. If you look her up on Instagram, she wears really cool clothes. That's like one of her most fun things. She wears really cool clothes. And so I just got this idea of like, oh God, Whitney Rose, don't give up. Don't give up.
I love those songs even more now. I think that, and what I really like is it's really a women's musician. It's all, which I think is great to have the female voice in the song, the female perspective in the song. Just makes me love it all the more. I appreciated the reemergence of the image.
Yeah, I think the thing about being a female artist has somehow really become more important to me. I think that I used to say that I really wasn't that affected by chauvinism or prejudices about gender. as a young person because I always felt like I did whatever I wanted. And I kind of did do whatever I wanted in my life. But now I'm looking back on it and I see that I shied away from pursuing my music professionally many times and retreated many times because there were frightening interactions with men. There were frightening interactions with men on stage where men would grab my ankles in the bars and on the iron range, and I used to say that I had to stomp on their hands with my boots while I was playing so they wouldn't grab my ankles because I was 18 and I was playing Bob Dylan songs on the iron range in the bars. I remember going to an audition once where it was I wanted to open for a band that was on tour in the town, and the head of the band said, "Yeah, come over to our hotel tomorrow. Bring your guitar, and we'll hear a few songs, and you can open tonight. You can open tomorrow night if you play for us." And so I got to the hotel room, and the other guys weren't there, and it was just the lead guy, but he was the one who had said, come over. So I was like, okay. And he said, I just need to go in the other room. They had like a suite of rooms. I just need to go in the other room for a minute, get your guitar out, get your guitar tuned up. My hands were shaking. I was so nervous. I practiced like all night. I didn't sleep all night. I was so excited about this. And he came back out in a towel. He was only wearing a towel. He had taken all his clothes off and wrapped himself in a towel. And I just like threw my guitar in the case and ran out, and I cried all the way home. I mean, so many stories like that. I can tell a million stories like that.
Yeah.
Luckily I didn't have anything worse than that ever happened to me. But I was always so frightened by the men that I didn't pursue my music career. No. And I feel now that's a real story.
Oh, absolutely. One, good on you for just running out of that place, because it's hard to describe to people how, like, this is your dream, and you just got to do this one thing you don't want to do. I mean, you just got to sell your soul to the devil, and then it'll all be yours. But it's good for you for sticking to your own, but also, and then I think once you get to a certain age, you're like, but oh, honey, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. And but when we're in the mix of it, and people, every that is a terrible story. It's, I'm sorry that it happened to you, but the fact that, because I've had stories where I'm like, but it wasn't this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You got to recognize it wasn't this, but it wasn't also play your song. You got the gig. Let's go home. To our individual, like.
I forgot to say this, but another part of the story is that I had to go back and tell my family and the people who thought that I was going to be playing. I told them that I didn't get it.
I was going to ask if you told the truth. Yeah.
That I failed and that they didn't like my music enough. I didn't tell them the truth because for some reason it was so embarrassing to me. I don't really know why. But of course, every woman who was a women's studies major in college, or every woman who's a psychologist, they would know immediately that would be the reaction a young woman would have had. But for me, as the person who lived through it, it's almost like weird to me that I didn't. I guess it's just because I think, especially this was in the 1970s, I think that women knew that they would not be taken seriously, and that what would be said was, well, what kind of girl goes in her like tight cut off shorts to a hotel room where there's like a guy in a band? I mean, and you thought that you were going to play your songs, huh? How stupid are you? But to have lived like that, to have lived as women like that now, to me, is just so unacceptable and so shocking that it's hard for me to even realize that that's what we all thought. We would have thought that I was a fool to go there, and that was one of the reasons why I wasn't I guess I wasn't the person who thought, okay, yeah, I'm going to do whatever it takes And if I have to sleep with these people along the way, I'll do it. I guess I just didn't have. I guess I didn't have that in me for some reason. I don't know why.
Well,
I didn't have it in me to be that guy.
no, and that's good. Well, and I thank you for telling the story because and Heather and I both interviewed everybody for the Me Too Minneapolis album,
Right.
which included some artists that were in their 20s, and some artists who were, I know, famously celebrated turning 50 a couple years ago. I think she's just about right my age, you know. But I think it's in sharing the stories that we remember from being kids gives voice to, because the other thing back in the day is you didn't realize you weren't alone.
Right. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think so that's why I think the songs that you sing, the stories that you tell really give power to all women to recognize, oh, you know, that's not just happening to me. So thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Courtney, there's a song, the horse that jumps the fence.
Oh yeah.
That is probably one of my favorites, and you say something about freedom and whatever. I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit more. And then when you were speaking of this, it was kind of what I get is like you're letting all the shit out and letting yourself embrace being a woman of whatever that you thought was holding you back, and you're like, I'm out of here, I'm going, I'm doing it. And like Anne said, being that inspiration for all of us and women going, yeah, why are we selling ourselves short or telling us we can't do it because this number or these many kids or whatever, that we are holding ourselves back. So you are kind of giving us the gift of, really? No.
Yeah.
No more. Let's jump the fence.
Amen. I'm not exactly sure where all this, mentality, I guess we can just weave it together that probably everything we've mentioned so far tonight, all the things we've mentioned have affected me about saying, I really I don't respect anymore what a lot of conventional wisdom is about what's possible and what a person can do with their lives, and particularly what a woman can do with her life. I just don't respect the conventional wisdom about this stuff anymore. And no matter what you think about politics in America, Nancy Pelosi is a great example because she just turned 81. She's 81 years old. And I am here to tell you that even at 60, the idea of putting on your pumps and your proper clothing like she does and going in there and standing on your feet as long as she has to stand and talking to as many annoying MF people that she probably has to talk to every day. Oh my God. If you did one and you had to listen to one more whippersnapper, like some 30-year-old who thinks they know everything now, I can't believe that she keeps her composure. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle. I'm just talking about a human being making that kind of an effort with her with the time she has left in her life. And Nancy Pelosi also has plenty of money from what it seems to me. And she doesn't need to be doing that job. And, there are people who would dismiss it like, yeah, she's a crazy power monger. But nobody who's 81 is a crazy power monger, okay? When you've been beaten down by life, man, you're on your knees. Nobody gets to 81 without being humbled, And so there must be some kind of personal code of principles that drives her to be there. And we all owe people like that a huge debt of gratitude, because that person is willing to make sure that their perspective and their experience is added into the voices that are speaking. Yeah, she could go home she could probably be sitting by the pool someplace. But then her 81-year-old perspective would be lost to us all. And that's how I do feel about being a songwriter at 60 years old. I feel like, well, you know what? I'm listening to a lot of stuff that people are writing. I love many young artists, and I love a lot of young new music. I loved everything that Taylor Swift did during the pandemic, and I really honor her for what she did with her music during that time. But I do think that the idea that an older person's perspective is something that you can dismiss or discredit is absurd. It's just the opposite of what's real. I mean, I'm raising 30-year-olds right now. I know what 30-year-olds are like. I have 3 of them, and I just know that between 30 and 60, a lot of shit goes down, and you have a lot to offer that you don't have at 30, no matter how hard you try. It's a different perspective.
Well, and to assume that people only want to hear from somebody 30 and under, I like Taylor Swift, but also I'd like to hear people who are speaking to my perspective. That would also assume that you have to hang up the headphones at age 30.
Right.
Or listen to the same thing that you listen to, be listening to Echo and Bunnymen for the rest of my life, which I could be fairly happily doing, but I think that the new music coming from new perspectives will reach a wider audience and keep a wider audience engaged.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that there are speaking about people from like the ages of, I don't know, maybe like 40 to 81. Those people, I think it is nice to hear new music that does speak to things that you can relate to. And sometimes that can be hard to find. As you get older, it can be hard to find music that you can like, and you can start to feel really like disenfranchised, like you no longer are part of the world, because you can turn on your radio and go. So then you end up doing that thing that people do where they start listening to like hits from the 80s or whatever they listen, you know what I mean?
5 and 50s. I can tell you my parents listened to it on it serious. Yeah. But then I try to weave in some of this, and I will say, Love Holds is a song that had a sound for me that reminded me of the music I listened to with my parents when I was a kid in a refreshed way.
Yeah.
That had that like 70s, early 70s vibe of.
I was going to say, yeah, I hear Carole King every once in a while in a tone of your voice, and I'm like, love it.
That. Oh, I haven't, no one's ever said that. So that's, and I think.
Are you serious? Oh my gosh.
So that's
okay. I hear it. Okay. That's so weird. You've never heard that before. Okay.
No, and that's so great because I loved that Tapestry record, and for a while it was the only record I had. It was a vinyl record, and it had just come out. So I don't know what year that was, but for a while it was the only record I owned. And I would be like, I'm going to put on my record.
But that's another thing when you were talking about age too. What I love about from when we spoke to last time to this time, just your self-changing growth and your different perspective on your very own story. You still give us your honest story. It's just tilted or deeper, and it's just kind of fun to hear you peeling back and letting us in more with you.
Thank you. I think that was a really big part of it for me, was realizing that I've been hiding, and that was the last thing I wanted to do. I don't even know how to talk about that, but I know that people were so, people made it so keenly about how I was wrong to be pursuing this after all these years. Um, at 40, they were saying that. Oh my God, are you still trying to do this? Or they'd say, are you still singing? I'd be like, oh yeah, 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 I am. I'm still singing. Yeah, it just sounded absurd to people. And I think I think it got to the point where I didn't want people to know too much about me because I felt that the more I revealed myself, the more they would just be like, oh God, I mean, she really is just an older woman. Oh, oh no, we can't even like her music. Even if we do like it, we can't like it because it's not cool or something. And so I think I felt like I had to keep hiding, hoping that the music could speak for itself, and not, and honestly, like not go out in public too much, and not say too much, and not let people know that I had children. I mean, people in when I was living in New York and my kids were in college and two of them were at NYU, I was there for 5 years working on my music career and touring around and stuff. And people would say to me, "Don't tell anybody that you've got kids going to NYU. Geez, that'll ruin your music career right there." I mean, honestly, I am, if I do nothing else in my life but try to disabuse people of the idea that women can't be um, can't be viable or attractive or respected for their contributions, somehow because they've become mothers or because they've they've reached a certain age. I mean, it's now I'm just appalled by it.
I was going to say, too, just by what you're saying, that trying times for love kind of reminded me during the pandemic when everybody got real and started shedding and going, I'm losing my shit, or showing themselves crying or whatever, being real and not being like, oh, my perfect life everywhere. And that song kind of gave me that visual of, yeah, we're good for us. We're going to show real life, and that's relatable, and we need to start living it, you know?
Mm-hmm. A person said to me, um, at, at, at one point in writing all the songs, somebody said to me, the easiest thing for you to do right now, Courtney, would be to tell Rob to piss off and just leave. That's kind of what you usually do. Like I've left other relationships, and I've moved around a lot, and I ran away from my parents. And so, the easiest thing to do would be to just be like, oh my God, I'm so over you. I'm not working with you on another record. I'm not living in your darn house, you know. And that's what horse that jumps a fence is she's in. I feel like these people are like characters in a way in my mind, because it's like I don't necessarily feel that way right now. So I can say like she, like the person who was writing that song, or the person who I think of when I sing that song, she is saying, I really love you, but I gotta do my own thing. And she doesn't really say I'm never coming back. She doesn't say that in that song. Um, in Trying Times for Love, I came in this room and I sat down on there's a little guest bed in here. I sat down on the bed and I started writing that song, Trying Times for Love, and it said, and when I see you looking at me, I still see you smiling. And I don't know, it said some other things. And I was like, I'm writing this down. And I'm like, oh my God, you've totally lost it. Like, it's so, like, so sentimental and so sincerely, like, delighted with love. And I couldn't handle it at all. I thought if I hadn't done the Artist Way book as many times as I've done it, gone through like working on like your inner editor, that song never would have seen the light of day, because it was ridiculous. I was writing the words going, I can't write this. No, I mean, no one's going to take this seriously coming from me. People are just going to like laugh.
Oh, I thought it was beautiful because it says something like you're still shining or something to like to be able to not be that young, like, oh my God, I can't live without you, and then to look at the person going, yeah, we did it, or we can do it, we can make it through, like you're worth this shit-tastic time of the pandemic, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I'm still joking around about saying like, well, okay, so it started out being a pandemic breakup record, which I didn't think I was making that, but then there's the horse that jumps the fence, and there's the song called Just Another Cowboy, where she is saying, I am over this and I'm out of here. But it's not really that. It's also that really she's saying that they both wrecked the relationship, and now she can't reconnect with the person, whoever the person is, that she doesn't feel like she can reconnect with the person, and that she's on her own whether she likes it or not, and that the relationship is wrecked. You know, that's a feeling that I definitely had during this time, was like, maybe it's just wrecked. Maybe I've just run its course, and there's nothing I can do about it. My dog is trying to come in here. He's scratching me.
It's like, you're having too much fun, Mom.
I'm busy. Go away. I'm busy right now. So I think that saying, okay, it's really fun to get to admit that you maybe wish you could leave or you want to leave. That's very liberating. And also by saying those things and singing those songs and getting to sing those songs like on tour now, or go out and play these songs for people. It's really fun to like act out all these different ways of like, I can leave right now if I want to. I am not stuck here. And also saying, I still kind of like you, and maybe I'm going to stick around, but you better be on good behavior. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think are just part of long-term relationships. And to me, they're all the thoughts I had are packed into the album, so that it starts out being a pandemic breakup, and it ends up being, okay, it seems like they're gonna stay together. The song called Love Holds Us, that is like a 1950s like love ballad.
Yeah.
That was another song that I felt totally ridiculous writing. Like, I can't write this. It's so generic and it's so corny or something. I was horrified that I was writing it. But I kept coming back to it because it's to me, the idea that all we need to do now is bask in the glory of love was like, okay, we actually know that we love each other. And how, honestly, really never in my life have I been in a relationship where the two people actually feel the same way about each other 100%, and they actually do look at each other and they know for sure that they both feel the same way about each. And Rob and I really do. I mean, we've gone on all those 14 tours to Europe and all over America and made 7 records together. And we know a lot about each other, and we know that we have genuine love for each other. And I feel like it could be a very liberating thing to be able to look at a person that you are in a monogamous relationship with and say, okay, let's just relax and be grateful. And I mean, even if you only do that for a couple days and see how it feels, you know, it doesn't have to be even forever, but you could say, what a joy, what a way to feel grateful is to just recognize that you actually both love each other. I don't know how, I mean, the statistics of my own relationships is that doesn't happen very often, that both people feel equally, I don't even know if I want to use the word committed, but just a genuine, true, caring love for the other person. I don't really know if that's that common in monogamous relationships.
Nope. And I was going to say, I love the fact that you said, let's just allow ourselves to feel this. And I'm kind of curious on now talking about this, what songs he said, those are out of there. I'm like,
Oh, so the great thing is that, you know, I ended up just sifting it out to these 14 songs, and then Rob kept them all. And then I started saying, Rob, you do realize that the name of the album is Rob. But it's going to be called Courtney Yasmineh, the Rob album. It's the songs about Rob. And he's the producer of the record. And half the songs say she's leaving. And then he started being funny. So he has Rob Genetic has an Uptown Sound recording studio in Uptown. And he also, during the pandemic, he set up a small little like recording suite kind of space in his garage at the back of this house. And so he would come like, you know, sauntering in from the garage, and we would start laughing about how he's writing these backup harmony parts that's Rob singing, going, she's leaving, leaving, you know. Here he is singing, putting the nail in the coffin of our relationship, and these funny songs. I mean, it's just, all we could do is laugh. And he's been a good sport. And he knew also that he was going to be the drummer on stage, standing behind me when I'm saying all this crap. It's just funny. I mean, what are you going to do, you know?
it's not a Stevie and Lindsay Buckingham story.
Right. Those guys.
No, I'm glad your story is much better. But yeah, that just enriches the songs that much more, you know?
Fun. Yeah, it's fun. Well, and I know that I'm going to want to play solo a lot, because during the pandemic, that's all I did. So we just did our first release party kind of thing this past Saturday night, and it was the first time that I played with John James, who does all the, I think, really great cowboy sounding guitar work on this record. I don't even know where he came up with that stuff. I didn't write those guitar parts. He just manifested that sound, and I just think it's delightful. I totally love it. And then Rob playing drums. And so it's just the three of us primarily. This week, on Thursday, I don't know, well, anyway, on Thursday.
This week and Thursday, yeah.
Okay, Thursday, Wolf.
Actually, say Thursday. No, I gotta ask myself. So next Thursday we're talking about.
Next Thursday, right?
Yes.
Next Thursday at the Wolf Amphitheater in St. Louis Park from 7 to 8, we'll be playing. And I think that we're going to have Jeff Victor, who played all the piano and the organ parts. And he was one of the guys in the Honey Dogs band. Mm-hmm. And he also was in Peter Himmelman's bands in the past, like Sussman Lawrence band or something like that. Anyway.
Yep, remember Sussman Lawrence, yeah.
Jeff Victor's really terrific, and I think he'll be joining us too. And so it's really, really fun to get to hear the harmony parts. The guys sing, that we're calling it like the cowboy choir. You know, nice. There's like 5-part harmonies in some parts of the record. That's mostly men singing, which I think is funny. But even for all that fun of getting to play with the band, I really get a lot out of interacting with people playing solo. And I like being able to tell the stories, and I like talking about the songs, and it is a little bit more fun to tell the stories and talk about the songs when Rob's not sitting there behind you. I can say more shocking things when he's not there.
That's awesome. So that show, the show in St. Louis Park, it's kind of an official CD release or album release.
I think that's probably more official than the last one was, because we're going to have the actual CDs. I want to say something about CDs. Can I say
yeah.
CDs? So I think there are the people who lie and say, "Well, I don't even have a way to play a CD anymore." I think some people are lying. I just want to say that, because I think that somewhere the world has made it so much that you have to do all your music through your phone, and that it's just so profoundly uncool to have a CD or talk about a CD or play a CD anywhere. But I really find it hard to believe that people rip the CD player things out of their stereo systems at home, the whatever they play on at home. They all threw those away. The day that people told them CDs aren't cool anymore, they all threw them away, huh? I get that you don't have it in your car, and I get that you don't have it on your laptop, but I think that there are probably people who still have some way to play a CD. Okay, so just that being said, I have been prepared for 10 years now to not sell any CDs. I mean, at least for how many years do you think people have been saying you can't sell CDs? No one wants to buy a CD. 10 years, 5 years? I don't know.
Yeah,
How long
probably.
have they said that? And yet, I know it's partly the style of music that I do and the demographic and my age, but there are always people asking me, when are the CDs coming out? And so I just keep printing them, and they keep buying them. And it's really fun because it is fun to autograph something, and it is fun to pull out the booklet and read all the lyrics. It is fun to read the credits. It's kind of fun if for me, I have a 10-year-old Jeep, and I like that you can put the CD in and your phone isn't interrupting your music constantly with your directions and your calls and all this. The CD just keeps playing through it all. It never stops. So anyway, I have CDs printed up, and I have people asking for them. At the last show, I didn't have them, and I really thought, well, this could be finally the era, like, of this new record for me, where no one wants to buy the CD. And so I started saying to people, you know what, they're not printed up yet, and they won't be for the last show last Saturday. I'm sorry, there won't be CDs, but who cares? Everybody says they can't play them anyway. They can't. Well, people were so worked up about it that I burned a bunch. I got a CD burner, and I burned a whole bunch. And I thought, well, I sat there and did this, and I wrote all out the little things by hand. And I thought, I went to all this trouble, so I'm selling these for $20 a piece. And I mean, because it was a total hassle, and everybody bought them. They're
Awesome.
they all sold. So I'm sure it is partly I'm in a weird bubble about the type of music I'm doing and stuff. But I will have the real CDs at this show, and I guess people want to buy them. Amazing.
That's great. Well, now people know where to go. Will you tell folks who are listening, I will add this in the notes, where they can find you online, you and your music?
Yeah, so it's the easiest thing to do is my nice website is very clear and simple. It's not hard to navigate at all. And it's just CourtneyYasmineh.com. And it has all social media. You just click on them. It's very straightforward. And it also has my favorite thing, which is the daily blog that I've been doing for about 3 years now. I never miss a day, even when I'm on tour. And that's part of the fun, is that you can see where we are and what we're doing. But it was really great to have it during the pandemic every day too. When I was sick, it was great. It means so much to me. And now I've shifted it for about a year now into Patreon. But the button for the daily blog is on the website, and it goes to Patreon.
Nice.
And for people who are afraid of Patreon, you can just do it like a subscription for like $5 a month. And in my case, what you're subscribing to is all these daily, way overly personal, way too much information, damaging for me and for you, but really fun. It's really fun, and you can't read that stuff anywhere else, and you're not going to find out those things anywhere else. And then photos and videos and stuff that doesn't get printed anywhere else. And I think that that's a really meaningful thing for a person who really, really loves watching the idea of a person being a songwriter, whether you are yourself also pursuing being a songwriter, or whether you just think that that seems like a neat thing. There are people who give me a lot of feedback about seeing the daily ins and outs of it is sort of interesting, because it, for the people who are like, go get a real job, you do really realize that it's a huge job. It's a, like it's and it's and it's life or death. It's starve or succeed. And so it's got a lot of drama around it, which I think is fun.
I think that, and it gives everybody an opportunity. We can't all be patron of the arts necessarily, but we could be Patreon and collectively support people. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know how people feel about it these days, but the people who are doing it, I think it's a really positive thing for people to do for the arts. What I think, one thing that's coming up now is in September, people like me who've been able to get unemployment. Some people have, and some people haven't all this time. And there's been a lot of trouble around it, I think. But I think there are some artists who are really going to need to really be up 100% back to, or I don't know, you can't go back, so you can't say back to, but they need to be somehow have moved forward into some new context for how they're surviving, and for people who've utilized the unemployment stuff that the government did. I don't know what it looks like, because it is really hard to create a new way forward, I think.
Well, and I think it's an opportunity for those of us who haven't been in that same boat. Those of us who have, I mean, obviously if you have a job where your whole situation has changed, you do what you can. But for many of us, it hasn't changed too much. And it's a way, if you love Minnesota music, support Minnesota music.
Yeah, because I know that I just know that there are a lot of people I know who are really not sure what to do as the fall comes, and 2022. There are a lot of question marks.
So we do our part. Yeah. And thanks for doing your part to promote everybody's music in that way. I mean, I think it's a good way for everybody to take a look at it. So, and thank you for such a great album. I can't wait for more people to hear it, because I think that I think there's just a lot of little hidden, in my world, Easter eggs where what this song connects to that song in this way, and you see the reemergence of this, that, and the other, and it's amazing. It's really a tight album. It's
good. That's what I wanted. I didn't know that's what I wanted, but as it was happening, I saw that I was repeating myself, and then I thought, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna, instead of saying, oh, you can't say boots of Spanish leather in that song and then bring it up again in a different song. But I let myself do those things, and then I started thinking that it seemed kind of neat. It happened first, and then I just allowed. I guess that's probably a really great creative thing to say is, if you just let it happen and don't try to make sure it all works or make it cool or make it, some image that you're forcing. And instead, if you just let it happen, and then you can look at it later, and then you can decide, and a lot of things like that, I was surprised that the guys didn't blow the whistle on those things, because I trust Rob and John James a lot, and they would have said, they have said over the years when they didn't like something, they'd be like, Courtney, I don't know, that's weird. But they didn't say that about any of this. Not one word has been changed, and not one arrangement was changed. Wow. Not one note was changed from my original demos that I handed them. We just put the record together right on what I had already done.
It's amazing.
That's never happened before to me.
There is an authenticity to it that is just really compelling. Really compelling.
Okay, goody.
Yes. Yes. So thank you for the album. Thank you for taking this time to talk to us. It's been so much fun. It's always fun to talk to you.
Well, you guys are bright women, and you have a lot to offer. And it's a wonderful thing that you do. And I'm so much more aware now that people can choose to do these things like what you do, and they can choose not to. They can choose to stay home in their pajamas, but to show up the way you do and continue to be interested is such a huge gift. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's our pleasure. So thank you.
Okay, good night, you guys.